It's like old times, isn't it? The International Tennis Hall of Fame and the history that surrounds this place and Newport, Rhode Island. Of course, John McEnroe's history in the Davis Cup. He has again won both of his singles matches here. And during this long weekend, as you take a look at the Davis Cup, Mary Carrilo talked to him at length.
What a nice week the whole team put together. But in a way, especially you. I mean, coming back to Davis Cup after a couple of years.
I'm glad I overcame whatever problems existed beforehand. I mean, there were some political problems, and this has gone way back for a number of years. I was there for every match for 7 years, and in the last 6 years, I've only played 3 matches. The team went through a 6-year period where we didn't win any Davis Cups until last year, and I think that it's a good mixture. Me being on the Davis Cup team has always felt comfortable, and I'm disappointed in a way that I haven't been part of more of the teams the past 6 years. I feel like I could have made a difference, certainly, in some of the years we lost. And I love the team atmosphere. I love the team feeling of being able to band together for a couple weeks a year, even if it's only 4 weeks a year. I think it helps me in general. And to be at a setting like Newport's real nice, to be able to do something that's actually good preparation for your next event like Wimbledon. And usually Davis Cup comes at a difficult time on the schedule, so this way it's actually worked out real well.
That Hall of Fame, I mean, you're a very obvious future inductee to that place. A couple of years ago when Bjorn Borg was inducted, he didn't show up for it. I can't imagine you not showing up.
Oh, I'll be here when that happens. I mean, it's a great moment for any athlete to be inducted in their respective Hall of Fame. I think Bjorn just at that time was probably getting some poor advice, and he did have his head into other things at that time. He was trying to get off a clothing company. I think that was a big problem for him, and it was a new venture, and I think he needed to spend a lot of time. And you lose touch with tennis, I think, after you're gone from it such a long time. And I'm sure that at this time he probably regrets not coming at that time. It's a big honor for any athlete to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it was nice to be a part of it. I mean, I wish he hadn't done that. But on the other hand, there's a lot of young players that, for reasons I don't understand, aren't jumping at the opportunity to play Davis Cup. I mean, it's like twisting their arms to be able to play, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Tom Gorman's got a theory about it. He thinks that maybe in Europe, in other parts of the world where kids grow up at a young age playing team sports like soccer, they understand the power and importance of a team. But young Americans now, they start up at such a young age playing tennis, they don't, you know, it's such an individual sport that maybe that's part of the problem. You think you buy that, or do you think it's...
I don't buy it, no. But, I mean...
So what's their problem?
Tom's very diplomatic.
Yes.
He's the coach. He needs to be. I mean, he may have to go back to these players. So he can't afford to really say the things he really feels, I believe. I'm sure he's quite disappointed, but on the other hand, I think he would prefer a great team atmosphere, because that can win you matches also. I mean, there's plenty of baseball, basketball, football, and baseball teams around the United States of America, so... there's a lot of European players that play only tennis after they're 10, 12 years old as well. I would personally advocate playing other sports through your teens, but in all over the world. So I really don't buy that as an excuse. I think it's poor advice, and I think it's just the priorities aren't straight.
What are they missing? I mean, if you could sit down with some of these guys who are reluctant to play, Sampras and Agassi at times, I mean, what would you say to them?
When you put the USA on your back, it's just a feeling that it can't be easily explained. I think obviously it depends on the individual how you react to it, but I can't help it. I would think that would make them feel more like they're giving something back. They're giving so much, and yet there is a pressure there that can't really be explained to, say, the average tennis watcher. I mean, how can a 20-year-old guy that makes millions of dollars have pressure is what they would think. But there is a pressure there that is difficult for the young players. And I think this would be a way to release some of it, to be honest. I mean, it would actually help to get together, to be able to blend together as a group, to be able to outwardly root for some people for a couple days, and just to be in an atmosphere where the pressure is different, yet there is a big pressure to try to perform for your country. In a way, it's almost more pressure than trying to perform individually. So the true champions come out of Davis Cup and become better players for it. The players that aren't to that caliber may be adversely affected and lose matches, but nonetheless, they'll always experience that Davis Cup. So as a person, I think they'll come out ahead anyway, even if they lost matches. I know a guy like Jimmy Arias I'm sure he had years where he went through a sort of inner agony in a way for losing a match in Paraguay a couple years back. But he answered the call, so you have to give him credit for that. And the people that don't do that, there's so little that really has to be given back in a way. I mean, I would suspect that they would want to give some things back via playing Davis Cup, doing some charity events. I mean, you get so much, you feel it's almost like the balance is way off unless you do some other things. You should want to do it without having to be told. But if initially you have to be explained to it, I'd be happy to explain to them. I mean, when I talked to some of the players the last few years, I was at a totally different stage than they were. So possibly some of the things that I said to them may have been misconstrued. As an example, I think Tom Gorman's come a long way the last 6 years since he started as captain. I think in the beginning he wasn't assertive, and I feel like it took a while for him to understand what his role was. And it also took a while for me to understand, and the other players understand the way he coached. Each person is different. But I think he's come a long way in the way he handles it. I think that what he's shown is that even when players didn't answer the buzzer, so to speak, or make themselves available, he's always kept a very even profile about it all. I know if I was the captain, I wouldn't be that way. I'm not sure I would take no for an answer so easily, but I think that now he's building momentum in his favor. So whatever happens as far as his future goes, he can go out like with his head high, that he's been able to accomplish winning a Davis Cup match, as well as the inner respect that he deserves for making the effort for not a lot of money. I mean, people don't realize that the captain gets paid a lot less than the players do.
I want to talk finally about the day when you finally will retire. The first time I ever heard you mention retirement was in 1977 when you were 18. I don't know if you remember this as much as I do, but you had lost to Phil Dent at the French Open in the second round, and now here was about a month later, and you had to play the guy in the quarters of Wimbledon, your great right. Wimbledon. And before the match, you said, if I lose to this guy, I'm going to hang it up.
Well,
and you beat the guy.
I beat the guy,
and that's
so
why
right.
he's still
yeah,
playing.
The rest is history. There's guys, you hear that, people saying that now they're 19, 20, you know, it's just, it's so much a part of your life in a way that you build it up to, you almost believe, you know, I'm going to jump off the bridge if I lose this. You know, I did say that to myself once, that I was going to jump off the Empire State Building if I lost to Chris Lewis in the finals of Wimbledon that year.
You beat him, too.
I did beat him, but I did put some pressure on myself. But, you know, that's something that was obviously something said as a kid. I mean, I didn't even know what I was saying. I mean, people take it more seriously when you lose a lot, you're not #1, you've got family, you're over 30. You know, so wait a minute, maybe he is serious now. And I don't want to be the one... it's a hard call to how do you want to go out? You want to leave cold turkey? You want to sort of wind down? Do you want to take off a couple months and evaluate whether you want to try again? I never once actually said I was going to retire to this point. I've talked about it, and hopefully when I make the decision, I won't have to look back again. But the way things are going in sports now, I've got to say I could take 10 years off and come back. So, you know, I don't even know if I never need to retire. Why retire? Foreman came back, and Bjorn says he's coming back, and there's guys on the tennis circuit coming back all over the place.
Is Bjorn crazy to try to come back?
It depends what he's looking for. I mean, I'm not going to say he's crazy if that's going to keep him, it could actually help him. And he doesn't have to win anything by helping him. You know, he might just enjoy, like, getting in good shape again. It could be something as simple as that, just to put him back in the right frame of mind to go on to do something else. I mean, I hope that's the reason, I really do. I hope that that's what ends up happening, that he actually gets some enjoyment out of it. But, I mean, it was like a circus, you know, when he came back. It was just such a big build-up. It was unbelievable. But it just shows you how much, what he meant to the game. I mean, my biggest disappointment, in a way, one of my biggest disappointments was when he quit so soon. I mean, it was like the Lakers, to me, I mean, I'm not saying it was as intense to fans as the Lakers and the Celtics of the 80s or the great rivalries, but to me, that was like the Lakers-Celtics to me.
To everybody.
everyone hopefully in tennis, and it was such a blow. I mean, it was when Magic and Larry were in their 20s and younger, in the 80s and stuff. That was an incredible rivalry, and that's how I looked upon our thing in our own way. And it was like right after a couple of years, only 2 or 3 years in the league, that the whole Los Angeles Lakers retired at that moment. It just was such a void that it took me a year to get over it, myself. So I can imagine how it could hit him as an individual. The sport in general, it took a long time to recover. I don't think it has recovered, to be honest. It's not the same as it was 10 years ago, as far as I'm concerned. The closest guy that I've seen that has had that intensity in the last 10 years, I've only seen one guy that's been in that league, as far as I can see, when it was me and Bjorn and Jimmy, has been Becker, that has that feeling of just, strutting his stuff. And as much as I'm pissed off when I lose to him, I do respect seeing it, that he's got the audacity to do it.
You said something funny about Borg. A couple of years after he retired, you said, he didn't know I could screw up, because it was when you were in a slump and you were trying to come back. And,
you never know. So it's what, to go off, when people said, oh, he quit because they couldn't beat me. I mean, who knows? I mean, I could have gotten injured the next year. If you look at it purely on an individual level, maybe I did have his, at that point had his number. But we hadn't played on clay to this point. There was a lot of tennis to be played between us. It's a big disappointment for me. I would have loved to play him on clay when I was really coming on, and he was maybe winding down a little bit, But it would have been a hell of a match. And it's too bad, So when I see it now, I sort of take it with a grain of salt, because I immediately think back to, like, what it could have been the past. I remember seeing him, like, every now and then, like, every year or so, or 6 months, and each time I say, like, I'd be like, okay, you ready to come? I'd be like, you coming back? I said that for 2, 3, 4 years. And he'd be like, John, you'll understand. Someday you'll understand. I was like, I'd sort of be looking at him, and I said, I don't know. I mean, I'd say, well, I guess so.
He told you a couple of years ago, didn't you ask, you were playing in EXO together, and you said, what do you think I should do? And he said, quit. He actually said that.
Well, I think misery loves company, in a sense, and it's sad, but, guys that drink a lot, they love to be next to each other at the bar, if you ever notice. And unfortunately, at that time, he may have been going through some vibe that was just sort of a little bit down on tennis. I mean, I'm sure that, like, when I look at it, sometimes I'm sure I've said things offhandedly to a Sampras and Agassi, those two as an example, somewhat can be construed as negative about Davis Cup. And it's like, okay, fine, I'm not going to play Davis Cup then. Because I know if Rod Laver came up to me and said, Davis Cup really sucks, I don't know why anyone plays. And you'd think, wait a minute now. Maybe Davis Cup does suck. Now, I never said anything along those lines, but just I was like, God, the politics, and I'd start to be, moaning to myself. And these guys, may have taken it more serious. And certainly when a guy like Bjorn says, like, quit, you say, wait a minute now, maybe he's got something, and you think about it. And now all of a sudden to see him come back, that's sort of sad, because but I don't want to hold what's said in the past against him,
But you measure those people's words. People measure
You do measure them, but you have to just take it with a grain of salt. That's just it, because people can change, and he just was going through a period in his life. I mean, I'll always respect Bjorn for no matter whatever happens. But I don't lose respect for him seeing this. I feel for him. I don't lose respect for him. I think I read Vilander saying that, oh my God, Bjorn's going to come back and it's going to hurt him. I never think that's going to happen. He's always going to be Bjorn Borg, what was happened. This is 10 years later. I mean, it's like if someone decided to come back after a 10-year absence I mean, look at what Foreman did. I mean, he fought a bunch of guys that, were sort of tune-up bouts, I would call them. And then he handled it well. I mean, there's no saying that if Bjorn didn't handle it in a certain way that he could have some success. Now, to have as much as, this is a different sport. It's more, you require more playing than a boxing, which I'm not insinuating is easier, but it's a different situation. Look how George Foreman was very close to winning the heavyweight title. So to say without question, no, Bjorn can't do it, I think is foolish for anyone to say. You don't expect it, so it's like a pleasant surprise if anything's accomplished. I'd be surprised if he did anything, but I'd be pleasantly surprised. I think in a way it would be, he doesn't have to accomplish much, I don't believe, in order to feel some satisfaction.
How are you going to know when to quit, John?
I really do. I wish I knew. I wish I knew, in a way. I mean, for a while I thought, well, maybe it'd be good if I got thrown out of the game because that would make the decision easier. I wouldn't have to make it. Or on a physical level, I want to be unable to participate. But I don't want either of those things now. I realize that's not what I... Yeah, thank you. I came around. But I think that... I don't think that people know, to be honest. I really don't think athletes know. There's 1 in 100 that know the right time. You go down in all the sports and everyone, I bet you there's 1 in 100 that when they look back 10 years ago, I made the right decision. I mean, exactly when to stop. I mean, who knows? It's always going to be too soon, too late. I could have done something. It's tough. It's tough when you've done something your whole life and knowing that you're never going to have that same feeling in what you're doing. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't want to go out and see, hey, how much money can I make working like in a bank investment job? When you have that thrill of like being the best at your sport, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's great different satisfaction in raising children, being able to have some things that you wouldn't have otherwise, and you know, a nice house, being able to, I love to collect art, I mean, for example, but that's not going to make me as satisfied as winning Wimbledon, winning the U.S. Open. So it's sort of, it's a tough thing to walk away from because of that, and because of the fact that you always want to think, what else can I do that's as good or better? And there's not really a whole lot that I can do or anything that I see that I'm going to be better at. I look at playing the guitar. I love to play the guitar, but yet there's other people all over the place that play the guitar as much as I've been involved in tennis the last 25 years. So it's sort of like an insult I almost take to say, okay, now I'm going to go and be a rock star, you know. It just doesn't, I don't see it in that way. It doesn't mean I won't go out and jam every now and then for some charity or try to put together some songs that won't be totally lame. But, you know, I don't look at it as a job. As a hobby, a nice hobby. I've gotten better in the last 10 years, but where I started and where I am now, I'll be the year 3000 before I'm as good as a real good guitarist.
Have you got one more dream in tennis?
Yeah, I think I'd like to win one more big one. Preferably the U.S. Open, but anyone's fine. Anyone will do. That would be nice. I don't expect to be #1 again, and it's not really something I really even want that much, but if I could win like a big one, and also I don't mean win a big one and lose 20 times in a row first round after that. And I mean to win a big one and then continue to like go to places and be like a threat. I mean, obviously the big one's what matters, but winning any tournament's a great feeling, so no one should get me wrong there. If you win a little tournament, it's still a great feeling.
John McEnroe, thanks a lot.
All right, man, thanks.